request. And let's see, I will do the better microphone. Okay, so I think, depending on whether or not I do Roam Live Code next week during the hackathon, this might be the last week of Roam Live Code. And it's not even a full week because we are off on Friday. So let's get this party started.
What happens to Roam in 2 weeks?
April 6th is my last day. But that doesn't mean that Roam Live Code needs to stop. Other people can do Roam Live Code other than me.
I can do Roam Live Code.
You absolutely can.
I'll show Celeste.
Okay. So, wasn't Celeste supposed to be here this afternoon? Did she bail? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yes. You've been nominated to run or participate in. Were you going to do it and Celeste was going to participate?
Oh, in like 2 weeks when no one else is here, I'm just going to teach you Roam.
Okay.
And you can teach me something else.
Okay. Cool. All right. So, a recorded Friday. We made an auth sign up and we wrote tests. We discussed mutable objects and why you have to be careful with them. We used a mutable object in our tests. Do you remember? Okay. And we discussed testing philosophy and the balance between completeness and wasted effort. Okay. So today we have sign up. We have sign in. So now we need a protected route. And so that Roam will give you an error. So the API will give you an error if you try to access the route, which is basically the idea of authentication in the first place, right? So let's go back and look and see what kind of routes we might want to have protected. I think we have user routes, right? And so if we get a user by ID, certainly we'd want that to be protected, right? You don't want users to be able to see a profile unless they're logged in. And not only do we want it to be protected, but we want it to be the correct user. So let's figure out how we're going to do this.
Just to look at a profile?
To look at their own, to look at a user's profile, right? I don't want you, Celeste, to be able to see my profile. Or do I? Or maybe you guys don't care about that and you only need to be logged in to write a post. Or edit the profile. All right, so we don't care. We're just going to publish Celeste's private info to the world. No problem.
We have Facebook.
we're Facebook. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure only Celeste can edit her own data. Okay. All right. So how do we do that? Good question. Let's go back to my sample project.
Well, the middleware attaches the user to the rec object, right?
Ah, the middleware attaches the user to the rec object. You want to try and do it without a net. Okay, cool.
No.
All right, that's good. So Celeste is going to do this for us. Okay, but the question is, how do I make sure that I go through the middleware before going to this particular route?
Maybe let's look at your old path.
Okay. All right. So we also want to say use authentication middleware for this route. So let's go back. Let's go to my sample project. And that's not it.
I feel like the cheater way that I did this, when I did the tiny sample,
Mm-hmm.
was like I put the routes that weren't protected above the middleware thing, and then just put like the middleware on app.use routes. It's like everything else just got it.
But you guys want to publish Celeste's, like, you know, all of her data, as long as it's not the patch route. So that wouldn't work. I think, well, anyway, okay, so let's look and see. And actually, this is not the one that I want to look at. The one that I want to look at is, do I still have it open here? I do. I want to look at this like little mini one that I did. And what I did here was, here's my protected route. And this uses this require auth middleware. And the require auth is just the JWT, it just checks for the JSON Web Token. Let's see whether we can get this working. And if we can, then we will take this and put it, actually, we'll put this in the authentication, in my authentication file, so that I can pull it into other files regardless. Okay, so let's go back here and we'll go to authentication.js. And here, I think I might actually want to put this in my authentication routes. So we have sign in, we have sign up, and then we have this require auth. So, so middleware for a protected route. And so now we'll export auth router so that we can get that require auth where we need it. Okay. I don't think this is how I'm trying to think about WWPdo. Or PD. I don't know that this is what Puneet would do. I think Puneet would make another file called middlewares. See, he's nodding. Okay. Basically, Puneet's like, I heard you've been like programming fast and loose with this Roam Live code, and like, I think my mere presence will make your code better. So, okay, so let's, what should we call this? I called it require auth, so. Okay, and then we'll go here, .js, okay, and fine. So now I can import this in my users. And I can say const require auth equals require middlewares require auth. Fine. And now I can make that a middleware for this. What does making this a middleware for this route do?
So if user is not authorized and tries to go to that path, it will ask him to log in, or?
So we're not going to actually ask the user to authenticate. That's not our job as the API. The front end will do that. what we're going to do is we're just going to send an error, right? And I actually, so this is going to send an error if I get a bad username and password. But that's not the only one, that's not the only circumstance for which I want to send an error. Why else would I want to send an error?
It's not the user.
If it's not the right user. Yeah. So let's, how can I check to see whether it's the right user?
Comparing the ID of the user that's attached to the rec with the ID from the frames.
Is that how I get it? Let's just, so I think that's fine, but let's just check our, well, we'll see. We'll check and see when we get our, when we do our tests. It'll tell us. Okay, what do I want to do in this case?
How can this be?
How can this be?
Yeah.
I go to user/1 because I assume there's a user 1, but I'm not user 1. I'm user 476. I'm properly authenticated as user 476. I should not be able to update user 1's data.
Yeah. That'll be a 401 response.
Nice try.
Let's see. Okay. So, an alarmist message here. How are we going to test this?
We're going to do an integration test on that route that is not right, but I'm trying to figure out like how we get rec.user in the test.
How do we get rec.user in the test? So this actually now, these tests, let's try, but I think these tests are going to fail. Let's see what happens. That's not how I intended them to fail. Okay. Are you guys sick of like seeing all of this?
This.
Yeah, should we do a different okay. So fun. 500. Okay, I'm getting internal server errors, which is not exactly what I want, but at least it's not working. Okay. Let's change our output to be more compact. So that is something that I have done on my sample project. Let's go to, actually, it's in server. And if we look at the package.json, oh, so I'm doing reporter, I'm using a dot. So let's go back to our package.json here and test. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, so now see how like it's a lot more compact there. I don't know why some of them are green and some of them are gray. In fact, I have no idea why some of them are green and some of them are gray. Okay, but you can see, like you can just look at this and you can see, ah, yeah, 5 failed. They happen to be the last ones. That's interesting. Okay, so so we're getting internal server errors. That's a problem. What was that, Celeste?
I was just reading it.
Okay. So let's figure out why we're getting internal server errors. How are we going to figure out why we're getting internal server errors?
Are we doing a console.error on the error object?
That might be a good idea. Where would we do that? In the tests? So let's do, just for this one, I think user does not exist and return status 422. So user does not exist. Okay, so let's just do console error. Let's just see what we get here. Although I actually think that the place that we really want to do that is in the user's routes. Sorry, here. We are doing a console error here, but we're getting an internal server error. I want to just want to see if we're getting here or not. Oh, and we should go and do an only because we don't need all these tests anymore. I don't think we did. Let's do it again here. No, why didn't we get there? So let's go back here and let's console. Actually, let's do the ID and let's do. And I wonder if that's the problem. We're not even getting here. Is it because of the middleware? if we remove the middleware, no, we're still getting, okay, but now it does the ID. Did it do the ID before and I didn't see it? No, it does the ID now, but we're still getting interesting. If I do this, I'm guessing it'll be okay. Okay, so let's just see what we have rec. Rec user was a problem. So let's just see what we have on rec. The thing is, though, we shouldn't even get there. If we have this, we shouldn't even get here, right? So, and we don't, but we still get the 500. So let's check in the middleware. And here we're just doing a passport authenticate JWT. And now if we go into our passport stuff and we look at our JWT, did we not make a JWT strategy? That might be our problem. Okay, let's make a JWT strategy. All right, so we are going to make a JWT strategy very similar to the one over here. And this is where it's going to get the JWT from the header. I think we talked about this, but I never actually put it in. So here's my JWT, which really was not in here at all. Make sure we import all of this from our JWT package, which let's check to see whether we actually have. JWT simple. Nope, we need passport JWT. Okay. So it's here. Okay. And then process.m secret, which I believe we used in encoding the JSON web token. So I think we're good there. And here we do not want to return fake user is in NDB, right? We actually want to check to see whether the user is in the database. So how do we do that? And this is payload sub, because remember, let's see, did I make a JWT? No, it's not in here. I think it might be an auth. Nope. Ugh, all right. Okay, so it's an authentication. So here, when we did this, when we made our token, sub was the user ID, and then IAT, sub meaning subject, and IAT, or issued at, is our timestamp. Okay, so I was just distracted by Brittany's headphones. So I'm like, thanks, Brittany. All right, so let's go back to our passport file. And so now, yeah, payload sub is going to be our user ID, because when somebody sends the JSON web token back to us, it's going to have the sub and the issued at. And if the user is false, so we'll translate a null response into false just because it likes to have false here. I think probably null would be okay here too. What does this null mean? There was no error. Otherwise, there was actually an error. Okay, now let's see if we can get this without a server error. Nope, we got a server error. Okay, so, all right, so let's see. So we got a server error. So let's see if we're actually in here. Oh, did I not? I don't think, yeah, I didn't do a passport use. JWT login. There's a reason that Stephen Grider takes like 6.5 days to explain all of this. Ah, better. Okay. So, right. And do you guys understand, like, does this make sense to you? The 401 means unauthorized, and the 422 means bad data, essentially that the user doesn't exist. And that's okay. In fact, I think we want to change our test in this case. If they give us a user that doesn't exist, we want to change our test. But it's not just, actually, now I think we want to update our tests and to have a couple of different possibilities for every test, right? I think we want a context with a valid JSON web token and with an invalid JSON web token for all of the tests. You with me? All of the what was that I was saying about wasted effort versus
all the protected routes, for all the tests on the protected routes?
Well, certainly all the tests on the protected routes. Yeah, I just meant for the patch, for all of my patch tests. Okay, so for user does not exist. So I think I actually want to do another context. And I'm going to say no JSON web token. And voila. There's no JSON web token. And perhaps I do not need all of these for no JSON web token. User does not exist. A return status. And here actually, for all of these, it's just going to return 401 for no JSON web token. So let's actually do the JSON web token first, and then we'll decide which of these we want to do without a JSON web token. So okay, so let's say with no JSON web token, we'll try with a non-existent user Fine, and it should return status 401, right? And if we, so actually, I think we just want to reset the DB once before, and we'll say it returns status 401 for non-existent user, and take the only off. And it returns status 401 for existing user, right? That basically that's all we need. If there's no JSON web token, so it returns status 401 for non-existent user, returns status 401 for existing user. That's basically what it should do if there's no token. So here, before, we will just do the reset DB. And for this one, so we can actually do this. Okay, so you with me, people who are looking? So basically, I'm just making the request for a non-existent user, and I should get a 401 error. And then I should also get a 401 error for an existent user, which should be 1. Uh-oh, how am I doing here? Not so good, apparently. So let's just do an only on this. Can you do a context.only? All right, so let's check my, okay, well, there's my problem. Wait, why is that up there? Shouldn't it be this one? Oh. Yeah, okay. So this one, oh, okay, so now I need to close the context. Try one more time. Oh, and it looks like I just, 401, 401. Why did it run the 422 ones here? Ah, okay. Why did it run it 3 times? No JWT. Target cannot be null or undefined. So it's telling me that this, oh, it's because, okay. I was working with the old format where I was like saving the error response. Two passing. Didn't I say we were going to just zoom through this? Okay. All right. So now, fine. So now let's do the harder part, which is actually checking Okay, so if the user does not exist, oh, how are we going to get the token? No one? Okay. Let's look and see in our authentication. So we issue a token whenever we run generate token. Let's use the Celeste function F12 to like find where generate token is defined. Oh, it's defined here. So somehow I can find where it's used. I can find all references, Shift F12. Let's try that. Dang, these things are powerful. Okay, so in sign in, I generate a token, and in sign up, I generate a token. No surprise, right? So maybe I can skip the sign in and sign up and just generate a token, right? You with me? Yes, no?
Oh, generate without signing up.
These are just tests.
You mean like pass it a fake user?
Ah, pass it a user, yes. Basically, if we look at generate token, all it needs is a user ID. It does not need anything else. So, I think I can generate a token by saying, so I can do a before each and I can say let token. Now up here I'm going to have to require that generate token, right? So I can say what was it? Was it in services or controllers? I think it was controllers. And okay, so all right, so now we have our generate token down here, and we can run generate token. And what does generate token take? It takes a user, I believe. Let me, so if we go back here, we can do a Shift F12 again. No definition found? Really? Oh, you hate me. Okay. Do I need to save it? No. Here's generate token. Did I not export it? Oh, I didn't. Okay, now let's try it. Okay, good. So, oh, I think I was. So now if I check this, okay, good. And I think I actually made it smaller. Okay, so here we have generate token, fine. And now we are going to generate a token. Oh, fine. And the whole reason I did that was to see what it took. So, okay, it was a user. I think I can do ID 1 like this, but I'm concerned why it's not. Right. It really is not finding generate token. So can I? And so if I do this and I do function F12, okay, there's generate token. And we look, and I've got, all right, for now, I'm just going to assume that it's not up to date. Oh, what happened? I'm not sharing my screen. I was just thinking about how idiotic I'm sounding to the world at large, and it's probably even worse if I'm not sharing my screen. So, okay. Well, we'll see how useful this actually is. All right. So now, fine, you're upset, but I'm going to leave you for now. All right. So now I have a token. Now, how do I actually pass that token? God, you hate me. Okay. How do I actually pass that token when I am making these requests?
Well, right now you can't.
Why not?
Because before always runs before each.
You know what, lady? I've had enough of your sass. Okay. Okay. You happy?
To have two befores.
Go away. Now you happy? How do I pass the token with this request? How do I want to pass the token with this request?
In the header.
In the header. Let's go back to that. So if we look at the JWT strategy, we're expecting to find the token in the authorization header. How do I pass a header with a chai HTTP request? I'm relying on Celeste to Google for me.
Yeah, so use .set and then the name of the header and then the value, comma the value.
Does it go before or after the patch?
After, but before the .send.
Okay. So authorization and token. Now, what should happen if we use this token to try and authorize for this route? It should fail. And let's go back to our route to see exactly how we failed. We say if it's the wrong user, we're going to send back a 401. So let's check that. Right. And we might as well say, check that the message includes trying to update user. All right, should we try that? Yeah, it really hated that, didn't it? Yeah, you're not letting me get away with anything. Okay, so why does it hate this so much? It's telling me it hates it because equals can only be used in an object literal property inside a destructuring assignment. Yeah, that's my response too. Generate token. So let's
It's because you're before. You need some parentheses.
Oh, all right. Okay. Before. Sometimes I feel like programming is just a lot of really nitpicky details. It passed! Let's see if we can make this part fail. Okay. Okay, cool. So this is actually quite a lot to be committing. So I'm going to do add JWT middleware for route authentication, and I will create middleware and test for invalid or test for requests without JWT, test for request with invalid or with user that doesn't match JWT. Okay, we'll do some more tests later. So, all right, so for the user does exist, now we can do the no data sent. We just need to make sure that we actually send the token. Okay. All right, so no data sent. If we send the token, we should expect all of this to be fine. Data sent, again, if we send the token, we should expect all this to be fine. And then the one that we haven't tested is user does exist and matches JWT. So let's actually now do which actually, to be honest, is exactly the same thing as this. So I'm going to just, I actually don't think we need to test this because it's really exactly the same thing. Did you hear that? I actually said we don't need to test something. Why are we unauthorized? It is interesting.
It says user one is attempting to change user one.
That's a bummer. User one is trying to update user one's data. Okay, but this is a big problem. And I'm wondering, you know how we did here, we did this? I'm wondering if one is a string and one is a number. Yeah. Is this how you cast something? Can I do that? Lovely. That makes me so happy.
So when they all pass, that dots are just quick.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just nice to like to not have like screens and screens of data, you know. So created tests for okay, and just because we can, let's do our regression testing. So we'll take off the only. While that's running, what are we going to do next? Let's protect some more routes. What other routes shall we protect? Posting? Posting a post? Okay, so posting a post. Here we don't care who the user is, right? And in fact, maybe we ought to just remove this user ID and just get it from the authentication. With me, Brittany? I'm sorry. It's one of the few pleasures I have. Okay, so okay. So let's actually remove this. And instead we'll say const user ID equals rec.user.id. That was how we did it, right?
Yep.
And now we can just remove this. Okay, and now it should be relatively easy, right? We just do the same thing we did with the user. What did we do with the user? All of you who have variously been paying attention and not paying attention. Somebody other than Celeste, what did we do with the user? How did we get the user to be authorized?
I mean, isn't there like an authentication header that we have to check?
Yes, that is how we deal with, how does that authentication header get checked? We don't do it manually. What checks that authentication header? Passport. And how do we ask Passport to check that authentication header? With the require auth function. And what is the purpose of the require auth function, or what do we call it? What's its role in life? It's middleware, with the require auth middleware. Way to dig into the recesses there, James, or way to think even when you really didn't want to, I should say. I'm sorry. No, I just want to make sure that people are actually following and not just sort of like smiling and nodding. And if you aren't, then all right, so we just do require auth here. Look at how easy that was, right? That was actually amazingly easy. It was painful to set the whole thing up, but that was amazingly easy. So let's test. Okay. So now we have to do the same thing. And now I'm going to actually be good and do that. And then how nice of me to have like had that indented as though that was there. Okay, and so for no JSON web token, fine. For JSON web token, we're going to do the same let token. As a matter of fact, I think I'm just going to copy that. Just do this. Okay, and we have to get that generate token. Where am I? Apparently not where I thought. Okay, and all right, so what do we want to test without a token? We don't care about no data sent or whatever. We basically just want to get a 422 or a 401 error, and it doesn't matter what. So let's just do, we don't even really care about resetting the database. So if we do this, okay, so so what's this going to look like?
Expect error not response status 401.
Fine. Now for this, now we've got our token. Now we've got to make sure that we send our token. After the post, before the send, it was set, right? Let's make sure we do that with all of these. I'm expecting this just to work. Oh, except that I don't want to send user ID. Let me just make sure I don't send user ID with any of them. I'm expecting this just to work. What are my percentages from people? 95?
96.
Did you make sure to import get authorization?
I'm pretty sure I did. Generate token? Yeah. Okay, good thought. Everybody else is just like, Jesus, Bonnie, it's 5 o'clock. Will you let us go home?
Oh,
Okay, we need to make sure that we can get them to fail. We probably want delete also. Okay, bad sign, bad sign. There was only 6 dots? No, there's not. Oh, yeah, one of them is green. I don't understand what is green. Is it because we didn't do... What is it actually doing?
Because we didn't do that. We did the post, not patch post.
Ah. Okay, so we're going to have to do that at some point. So the posts, got it. And so the posts. Okay, and now. Okay, so we got an error. I'm good. Okay, so tomorrow we are going to have to protect some other routes. We're going to want to protect the patch and delete routes on the post for the post router. And that should not take us long because it basically took us 8 minutes to do the it basically took us 8 minutes to do the posts here. Yeah, so we're going to do the patch and delete. And then I think we can move on to React. I think our back end is done.
Tomorrow, maybe. Yes.
Tomorrow, I think we're moving on to React. However, 75% chance. I would appreciate, or let's try this again. I think it would benefit you to come tomorrow being able to tell me how to do this for the patch and delete routes. I want to not generate any of the content tomorrow, and I want Celeste to generate at most 50% of the content, at least for these, for the authentication part. Once we get to the React part, then all bets are off. All right, cool. Questions on that?
I think I'm just gonna try actually coding it.
Great idea. Yeah. Well, try coding it, meaning on your own project, or meaning forking this one and actually doing the, yeah, fork this one and do the patch and delete. I think that would be a great idea. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Brianna's here. We're going to play her nerdy superhero game. It's going to be so fun.